We've very successfully upgraded our Drupal 6 core to Drupal 7. We see that our content survived the migration. We see that even our menu looks alright. We are, however, missing any component of the site that was put in place by way of module. So the next step in this process is to re-enable all of the old modules that we were using. This is the more laborious part of the upgrade process, although it's really not too difficult. Let's take a look back at our upgrade.txt file. Once we've run update.php and made sure all the settings, permissions, and everything like that is in place, we're going to want to back up the database, once again after running update.php. So if you haven't yet, particularly if you're on a live site, this is where you would want to back up your database, just in case things go haywire. And then, once again, we're going to replace and update our non-core modules and themes. It tells us to use the instructions at this URL. So let's check this out very quickly. Upgrading contributed modules and themes from Drupal 6 to Drupal 7. We're focusing on modules because themes, either there's a new version of them or there's not. And a lot of that has to be customized on a per site basis. It's not nearly as involved of a process as it is for modules. So we're going to check any notes of our own, as well as any upgrade.txt files that happen to be inside each module. This is one step we're not going to be doing because the modules we're working with don't have any upgrade.txt files with special instructions. The first step to updating any given module is to remove the module directory inside site's all modules. Note that this is referring to the individual module folder, not the modules folder that has all of the contributed modules in it. Then we're going to download the Drupal 7 version of the module, unpack it, in other words, extract it, and then place it in the site's all modules directory, just where the old one was. Then we're going to go to our Drupal site and enable the module. We're going to run update.php again, and then we're going to back up our database and files once again after every module we enable, once again, just in case something goes wrong. Now, on pretty much any Drupal 6 to 7 upgrade process, the most important information that you're going to want to go ahead and get access to is anything created in custom fields and custom content types. In Drupal 6, that was all handled with the CCK module. In Drupal 7, that's all handled by core. Now, CCK really does an impressive job of helping you along with the upgrade process when you're making the jump from 6 to 7. It does have a few extra instructions. Let's go to the CCK page on Drupal.org. If we scroll down here, we see that there's a link with instructions for migrating Drupal 6 CCK to Drupal 7 fields. So we're going to click on this. This will tell us how to work specifically with the CCK module. We're going to download the 7.x version of CCK, which exists, by the way, purely for the migration process. There's no need for a real CCK module in Drupal 7, once again, because it all comes with core. And we're going to enable CCK content migrate, and then we're going to go to this page and follow the instructions there. So we're kind of doing a combination of the instructions on this page and the instructions on this page for CCK in particular. So once again, the first step in all of this is to remove the module directory. So we're going to go to the back end of our site, public HTML, or whatever our Drupal root directory happens to be. We're going to go to Sites, All, Modules, CCK, and we're going to delete it. Now we're going to download the 7.x version of the module and place it back in the modules folder where the old version of CCK was. Now, of course, in Drupal 7, we do have the ability to go to Administration, Modules, Install New Module. We can install directly from URL, and this is generally fine to do. Just to be extra safe though, since the upgrade process is a delicate one, we're going to follow these rules exactly and manually download and extract the module to put it in the modules directory. So let's go back once again to Drupal CCK. Here's the project page for CCK. This, of course, is where we would download the 6.x version if we were still running a Drupal 6 site. For Drupal 7, we're going to go ahead and grab this tar.gz file, or zip if your operating system works better with zip. We can save this anywhere. I'll go ahead and just put this on the desktop. Here's CCK. We're going to extract that. And here's the actual module itself. In my case, I'm going to copy this. If you're using cPanel, or of course if you're on any sort of remote server, you'll be uploading it to your directory. At sites all modules. And there it is. If we go back here, once we've downloaded, unpacked, and moved it here, we're going to enable the module. However, if we read the special steps for CCK, we're not actually going to enable CCK itself, we're going to enable CCK content migrate. So let's go back to our site, and we're going to the page that lists all of our modules. If you ever get lost, this page can be found at Administration and Modules. We're going to scroll down and look for CCK. And here it is. Now notice this is a very helpful thing that Drupal 7 does. If it detects an old version of any of your modules, it'll put one of these big red X's right there to let you know that it can't use this. This is an incompatible version, and it gives you the version number 6.x. That keeps you from being confused as to what's being used, what's not being used, what's compatible, what you have replaced and have not. So pay attention to that. Here, according to CCK's instructions, we're going to simply enable content migrate. So let's do that and then save our configuration. We'll go back here to our CCK specific instructions, and it tells us to browse to Structure, Migrate Fields, which will be at this link if we replace example.com with our domain. And then we're going to basically follow the instructions there. So under Administration, we're going to go to Structure and Migrate Fields. And here we will have three groups of fields. Available fields is the first one. Available fields are fields that have not yet been migrated but are available for migration. It tells us to please read these messages carefully before we do so. So basically it's saying field location. This was our, of course, location field for our events. This one's ready to go. Just make sure you read this first and do anything necessary before you choose to migrate it. But you're pretty much all set. Converted fields are fields that have already been converted. Of course, you can choose to roll them back if the conversion did not work correctly. Note that rolling back fields will completely destroy the new field tables. This cannot be undone. This will give us any field that Drupal 7 was able to convert on its own without any input from us. We see that there are no fields that are already converted. In our case, unfortunately, there were no fields that it was able to automatically just go ahead and take care of on its own. But if there are, it will tell you which ones it took care of for you. And then here we have unavailable fields, which sounds kind of scary, but it's nothing to freak out about. All this means is that these fields under unavailable fields were not migrated because some necessary modules were missing. So all we're going to have to do is make sure we get the noted missing modules in place, and then we'll be able to migrate these currently unavailable fields. We're going to come back to these in a minute. First, let's take a look at this available field, field location. The message we're getting is invalid field widget combination. The field location in the bundle event, in other words in the content type event, is an unlimited length field using a text field widget, not allowed in D7. The field length will be set to 255. So it's just saying, hey, this is ready to go. However, currently you're letting this field be an unlimited length, and we're going to have to change it to a maximum length of 255 if you want to migrate this field. That's perfectly fine with us. So we're going to select this field and migrate it. And we get a warning that's basically just telling us what we just did. And here under converted fields, we now see that field location has been converted. Now we'll look at the fields that are going to take just a little bit more work. Here we see field image, file field. The message we're getting here is that we're missing the field module called file field. This field cannot be migrated. Now, there is no Drupal 7 module called file field, but the system's getting a little bit confused because it can't find any field to put our image field in, and it thinks it's looking for file field, but it's not really. This is one case where you kind of have to do a little poking around, and this is what you'll find. If you go to Modules, we're going to scroll down, looking at the core modules here. We see here's field that allows us to create fields of our own. Here's file. This defines a file field type. This is what we need. And while we're at it, we're going to go ahead and enable image as well, which provides image manipulation tools to crop and scale images that are uploaded to the Drupal site. So enabling file and image, let's scroll all the way down and save this configuration. Now let's go back to structure, migrate fields. And here we see that field image, our image field, is now available to be migrated. The field type is going to be changed from file field to image. That's perfectly fine with us. The image widget is not available for this field. It's going to be set to the default widget. That's fine. That's something that we can play around with in the field settings to make sure that's all set up correctly. We've got this available. Let's go ahead and migrate it. Again, we have our warning messages here, basically just telling us what we just did. And we see field image now appears under the converted fields portion of the page. Now we've just got 2 more to go. On a lot of Drupal sites, you would have more fields to do than just these 4 that we're taking care of, but the process is going to be pretty much the same. We see that for the date field, we're missing the date module. Currently, this field cannot be migrated. Well, that's an easy fix. Let's go ahead and update the date module, and then we'll come back. So in our sites all modules directory, we're going to find date. And once again, following the instructions on this page, we're going to remove date. First, you would want to go ahead and back up your database and files again, just to be safe, even though I realize it's a bit tedious to have to do that so frequently, but it can really save you if something goes wrong. So once that's done, we're going to remove the date module from our site, and then let's go download it anew. Drupal 7 date module. Here we go, date, drupal.org. And we want to make sure, of course, to download the 7.x version. I'm just going to put this on my desktop. You can save it wherever. Then once you have it, go ahead and extract it. And here we see the date folder. So you're going to copy this to your sites all modules directory or upload it. Here we go, sites all modules. Put it back where the 6.x version of date was. Now we'll go back to our website. We'll go to modules. We're going to scroll down and look for date. Here we go. We don't see the red X's. We see version 7.x, so we know we've got the right version of the date module. So we're going to go ahead and enable date, date all day, date API. I won't worry about date pop-up. We'll do date repeat API, date repeat field, date tools, and date views is not available yet because we don't have the current version of views. So we're going to leave that off, but we'll come back to it later. Let's save those changes. And our date module should be working now. Let's go back to structure and migrate fields, and this will tell us whether date is in place and whether CCK's migrate fields functionality can use it. And it can. Field date is now available for us to migrate. There's no other information, no caveats to this one. This should be pretty cut and dry. We're going to select it, Click Migrate Selected Fields. And there we go. Field date is now in effect. Any content of type event will now have the date available. The final unavailable field is field event. It is a node reference field type. Now this is actually another situation similar to the image field, where we kind of had to either just know on our own or do a little bit of searching to find out what to replace file field with, since there's not a Drupal 7 version of file field. There's not a Drupal 7 version of node reference either. So if you come across anything like this in the wild, you should be able to do some Google searching and find what you should replace the missing module with. For node reference, the Drupal 7 analog to that is called simply references. So let's go, we're going to do a search for Drupal 7 references. And here we go, the page for the references module. We're going to download 7.x, that's the only available version. Save it wherever you want. Then go find the file. Here we go, references, tar.gz file. Extract it. And then copy or upload it to sites all modules. Now, go back to our Drupal site, and we're going to go to the modules page. If we scroll down a little bit, we'll see that here under fields, we have node reference, which is a part of the references module, as well as user reference. Really, what we need here, this is the main part of references. This is the aspect of references that allows us to reference nodes, which is what we need in our case. We'll go ahead and enable user reference as well, because we may eventually use that on our site down the line, even though it's not necessary for the content that we are migrating. We'll save that configuration. Let's go back once again to structure and migrate fields. Now you may be very happy to see that our event field is available for migration. It does give us a message. The field uses the view -- that's the name of the view, to determine referenceable nodes. You will need to manually edit the view and add a display of type references. This is something that's actually going to be taken care of on its own once we install views for Drupal 7. So in this case, you really don't have to worry about that. Let's go ahead and click on it and choose to migrate the selected fields. Now we have no available fields, no unavailable fields. Everything that was custom made that we've been using has been converted to Drupal 7. If we go to a piece of content of the type event preview very quickly, DrupalCon is coming to LA this year. Let's go to edit this, and we see that the message pertaining to the event node reference, which is what this field is, actually wasn't anything to worry about because we have that here. You'll notice that we don't have that on this page currently. That has to do with our display settings. But if we go home, we'll see right here that it actually is properly referencing the event. If we click on DrupalCon, it takes us to the actual DrupalCon event. So as you're using node reference and as you're updating node reference to references, when it gives you that message about views, that's basically a message that you can ignore. Now we're going to do the final step of the process of upgrading any given module. We're going to run update.php, and in fact this is going to update a few modules since there were a couple that we installed in order to migrate some of our fields, but that's alright. It is always best to go ahead and do those individually, one at a time. So just keep that in mind for future reference, but for this tutorial, I just happen to know that for that part of the upgrade process, it's okay to do a couple of them at once. From here on out though, we'll be doing them just one at a time. So we're at update.php, we're going to continue. We have 7 pending updates. We're going to apply those updates. And everything worked out just fine. We'll go back to our front page, and the site looks exactly as we expect. So now we've completed the hard part of the process, which is migrating our custom content types and our custom content fields.